Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is September 2nd, 2019. It is Monday, Labor Day, and tonight's topic, Bitcoin on the move post Labor Day, and a gold shortage in China. We're going to get caught up on a few stories, but it is indeed Labor Day. Hope everyone enjoyed themselves or had some rest after their labors for the year. This is when you're supposed to recognize yourself as being a laborer. Well, what happens is after Labor Day, generally, a lot of Wall Street decision makers return from their extended, oftentimes month-long vacations out in the Hamptons and Long Island or wherever they go. And they come back with all kinds of ideas of how they're going to deploy their capital. And I think it's no coincidence that Bakkt has timed its launch. Now, Bakkt is a physically delivered Bitcoin options exchange, which is going to launch, I think, September 23rd, but it will be open for business to start storing your Bitcoin later this week. And I think that is starting to drive the price. And I do think that, and it's just a guess, but it's more than an intuition, that there will be many fund managers moving into alternative assets like cryptocurrencies and precious metals. Now, I say that not to pump and not because generally that's what this channel is about, but because we have seen that over the past year or so now, we've had these increasing negative interest rates. Now, a fund manager is always going to be concerned about the annual percentage rate that they're going to get so they can put in their marketing materials and say, we made X percent this year, this is how much we beat the market by, we missed the market. They generally try not to compare themselves to the market because they generally miss the market, but they can't have a lot of cash on the sideline earning negative rates. It's one thing, a lot of fund managers, they may be hesitant and they'll put money in treasury bonds, they'll put money on the sideline in cash, but they're not going to, and they might earn a small nominal rate of interest, but they're not going to put it in negative yielding bonds. The problem today is there's more and more negative yielding bonds, which means there's fewer places where you can actually get a fixed income rate of return. And it seems the one place you can get that is in U.S. Treasuries. Now, U.S. Treasuries are in demand for all the nonsense about de-dollarization and no one's buying treasuries and they're dumping treasuries. No, treasuries are in great demand for the mere fact that they pay a rate of interest, something I've been talking about as a mega trend since 2014 and 13 and 15, when all the commentators are saying the Fed can never raise rates. I said, no, the Fed has to raise rates. If the Fed and the United States wish to continue on the debt spree that it's on and continue to have unfunded liabilities, they need not just foreigners to buy U.S. debt, they need everybody to buy U.S. debt. And by putting your treasuries at a rate of interest, putting them on sale, well, that pretty much ensures that it's going to happen, even if people, investors, countries holding reserves thought maybe they don't want to do that. Well, maybe they don't want to buy the gold-backed yuan, or they don't want to have negative yielding debt. And what's also driving the demand for dollars is that all of the emerging markets and most debt is issued in the world denominated in dollars, which means they got to come up with the dollars to pay the interest and to pay the principal on their dollar-denominated debt instruments, which that's how China runs. State-owned enterprises, state-owned banks, all borrowing in dollars. So now what we see here is it's out in broad daylight. The markets know it. The media knows it. Here's Bloomberg. The unstoppable surge in negative yields reaches 17 trillion. That's 30% of all investment-grade securities now bear sub-zero yield. So these are what your fund managers go to park money. They'll put them in investment-grade securities, and they're not going to make any money. Well, one thing we know about gold is it is a tier 1 asset. Gold doesn't pay interest, but gold is a solid asset, and you can park money in gold, and maybe you might even get not an interest rate of return, but you might get a capital gain in gold. Similar for silver as well, although silver doesn't have the same history as a store of value. It's not held by central banks, and it's not a tier 1 asset, but still, silver does pass muster, or does meet some of the criteria. Maybe not for a fund manager, but for the small person, small investor who figures, maybe I'll get a speculative pop on the money that I park in silver. Now, the cryptocurrency story is different. I don't believe this nonsense that Bitcoin is a store of value or cryptocurrencies can be a store of value. I think they are very, very speculative. However, if I am a fund manager, which I'm not giving investment advice, but if I wanted to put together something where I might get a big pop on my portfolio for a very small amount of capital employed, I would put it into a cryptocurrency in a very small amount, because if the cryptocurrency rises tenfold, it's going to actually boost your entire portfolio. If you lose the whole thing, maybe no harm, no foul. So I'm sure fund managers are thinking this through. My guess is, in the aggregate, a good percentage of them, even if it's single digits, are going to come back and say to themselves, why don't I put a little money in gold, maybe silver, and why don't I take a flyer on cryptocurrencies? Now, the cryptocurrency flyer is going to, I think, the amount of money that's going to pour into precious metals should be larger, just given the more, I think it's a more safe bet. Gold, you're not looking for it to skyrocket, but gold, if it goes up 10-15% in a year, that's great for a fund manager to have that if he was only counting on it being a place to park cash, a cash equivalent. Silver obviously can do better if gold continues to rise. And then the cryptocurrencies, you will get some people just believing it straight up, but I think there would be a very, very small amount. And I also think the fact that Bakkt, which is backed by the New York Stock Exchange, Microsoft, Starbucks, and Boston Consulting Group, and has got all its regulatory ducks in order, will attract some institutional money because it's been cleared by the CFTC to open for business, to store cryptocurrencies. So I'm not suggesting that there'll be a flood of money pouring in, but I do suspect that the New York Stock Exchange has done its marketing, and I think they're going to boost this the same way they boost, when they ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, when an IPO happens. And most of those companies do pretty well. That's because they pretty much have that stuff pre-ordered and pre-marketed, and I think they're not doing this to go under they're not launching Bakkt to be under the radar, to have some niche product. They called this, in fact, in their first press release when they announced back in June that they were going to launch probably in September, they called this their moonshot bet. So, Wall Street loves the moonshot. They love bubbles. And as I've said for 2 or 3 years, I think they want a crypto bubble. I think you're running out of steam in your unicorn stocks, and basically bonds have already passed the point of no return if they're now negative. Now, it's not just bonds. Look at this one. This is from The Economist. Eurozone deposit rate. It's negative. You put money, you see, it's not a deposit. When you put money in the bank, you're not putting money in the bank like putting it in a deposit. It's not like they're holding your money for you. They just give you a digital representation that you've given them $150. And then they'll start deducting interest from there. But they're not holding on to your money. It's not there like dollar for dollar when you go back in and they'll give it to you. That would be a bailment, but that's not what happened. So amazing, you give them the money, you loan them the money, and then they charge you to make the loan. Well, again, I mean, if you're gonna be a saver, why would you even think of saving? And we've had this discussion a while back where you can, if you want to park your money, we've had a bunch of different ideas. You can buy gift cards, if they don't charge a fee. You can hold your money there. You can prepay some of your electric bills. There's a lot of things you can do. I think gift cards are with Amazon. That's a cash equivalent where you're going to spend that money anyway. I'm not suggesting you do it, but it's better than leaving it at 0.4% in the bank. The only thing is that in the bank, there is that depositor's insurance, which you don't get if you lose your gift card or what other cash equivalent you're holding on to. You can buy gold, you can buy silver, you can buy cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin. Now, they can go down, so they're not really cash equivalents. But there are a lot of cash equivalents where you can store your money. You can take out, you can buy rolls of quarters, you can buy, you could just take cash out and hold on to cash. Again, you can't hold it in large amounts because you can lose it. But if you're talking a few $100s and that's all you ever keep in your bank account, I just don't see the point in keeping a couple of $100s other than to pay bills. Anything over that, if they're going to take your money. And a lot of places say, well, they don't have negative interest rates in the U.S. Well, when you pay $14 a month at Bank of America for service fee just to have the account, that's a negative rate. So that's what I think is probably going to happen. Again, it's not investment advice. It's just, I think historically, these Wall Street types, they come back and they've got ideas. And they've been hearing all summer about the negative interest rates. Well, we did a poll a couple of days ago, and I asked what's going to happen to the cryptocurrencies. And about half said they'll go up, half said they'll go down. A few in the middle said no change. I think they kind of have to go up because if they don't go up, they're not going to go up for a while. I mean, they really are. I think there's a push to move cryptocurrencies onto Wall Street, and that push already started probably, but starts tomorrow. And you could see Bitcoin rose today. I don't know what it's at now, but there's a chart showing midday it kind of took off. And Bitcoin is now leading. What is it right now? Let's see. Yeah, it's at $10,400. Bitcoin's going to lead the altcoins probably now because they now have the full institutional backing of Bakkt, but there aren't yet, that I know of, they haven't announced they're going to support other cryptocurrencies at launch. Now, I would suspect that the institutions, if they're going to buy anything, they're going to feel the safest with Bitcoin. After all, it's the largest, it's the oldest, it's got the most secure network, and so on. But then I think at some point, if Bitcoin does catch a bid and start to rise and all the hype gets behind it, then the altcoins, some of them, will start to also catch a bid. But you could see Bitcoin running first. The others are not running right at the moment. And I think that's because Bitcoin is going to draw the oxygen out of the room up till the launch of Bakkt and then during the launch of Bakkt. Now remember, it's a futures exchange. If it gets enough volume, it might start influencing the price. And then, of course, that works both ways. It works to the positive and the negative. Now, we're hearing a lot, and one of the things on this channel that I've noticed, which I think in some respects keeps it from growing, is I've had a lot of subscribers who have been very bullish on silver, or very bullish on gold, or very bullish on Bitcoin, or very bullish on Litecoin. And I will take the view from time to time that there are things that are not bullish about any of those four. And I find that people like to hear confirmation. So there are people that love silver and they absolutely have nothing to do with gold. And there are people who like gold and really think silver is just a waste. There are people who like gold and think that cryptocurrencies are terrible. In fact, there's a good portion of my audience that was offended, was upset, shouldn't be covering cryptos, they're a scam, they're sending me stuff about the CIA. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything about cryptocurrency. There are people that are into cryptocurrencies. They don't want to hear anything about gold or silver. They're all in the drop gold camp. They think Peter Schiff is off his rocker because he doesn't understand cryptocurrencies. They actually believe in the pet rock. The gold is a relic, a barbarous relic. And then within crypto, you have your Bitcoin maximalists, extremists, who think that anything that's not Bitcoin is shitcoin, and they're very adamant about it. And then there's people who are fascinated with certain altcoins, and they think they're the future, like Veritasium, and yet all those pumpers out there pumping altcoins. I don't really have that type of adoration for any of them. I like to look at them, and this is why you don't really have a segment of the population. People like to think of themselves as broad-minded and they like to look at everything. But really what they want is they want to latch on to something they can believe in and listen to every night. I mean, think about the silver channels. How can you listen to silver being set to skyrocket for the last 10 years? But there are channels out there with wide audiences and they reject everything but silver. It's very religious. Do you reject cryptocurrencies and all of their works? I do. Do you believe that silver is the one and only asset on the planet? I do. And the Bitcoin people are the same way. So I call them Bitcoin derangement syndrome, gold derangement syndrome. And the Bitcoin people are as fanatic as the gold people, as the silver people. And they have decided that there's nothing, you just cannot have another cryptocurrency. It's got to be Bitcoin. And they've already assumed and they've already decided that Lightning Network solves everything, second layer solution, and that's how it's going to scale, and that's why everything else is shitcoin. You don't need it. But the thing is, there's nothing to say that Litecoin is going to work. In fact, the way they talk about other cryptocurrencies, about them being a scam and being useless, and they have no use case and so on, is how gold bugs talk about Bitcoin. That it's a scam, it's useless, it's thin air, there's no benefit to it. And this Lightning Network thing may not work. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of Lightning Network, but the point is, it's not how Bitcoin was originally designed, which was an on-chain transaction, peer-to-peer payment system. This adds a second layer. Requires people to load up a node, put their Bitcoin on it, and open up another channel. It may or may not work. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, that means either Bitcoin has to figure out another way to scale, either proof of stake, they have to change the blocks, they have to do something. And we've already seen experiments along that line. We've seen Bitcoin Cash, Satoshi's Vision. I'm not saying that they're the answer. I'm just saying that there is an issue with scalability with all the cryptocurrencies. And they use a lot of electricity. So there's no guarantee that Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency is going to gain widespread acceptance. But they don't believe that. They believe it's already a store of value and is destined to be the global reserve currency when it can't even get the transactions. Now, this will get people that like Bitcoin against me. I'm not against Bitcoin, but I can see there are flaws. There are things that'll stop it. Well, you just don't understand. You got to do more research. You got to read this book. Yeah, you got to read a pumper book. You got to read a book, somebody who's enamored with Bitcoin. It's the same with gold. People get enamored with these things and they get the derangements in there. So Lightning Network sounds intriguing to me. I don't think it's a slam dunk. I don't think, these things are risky. And they're pointing it out now in these articles, and the people in their immediate reaction, this is FUD, this is FUD, this is FUD. No, maybe it's just an objective analysis of the pitfalls or the challenges that Lightning Network face. Well, it's not just Lightning, it's second layer of solutions. Well, none of them are working right now. I'm not saying that they can't work, but this is the idea. Lightning solves everything. There never was and there never will be any need for any other cryptocurrency. And I laugh at that because there are people who like gold who say there's no need for Bitcoin at all in the first place. So I don't like to segment myself into this, but I do know that there are people, once they hear cryptocurrencies, their eyes glaze over. There's some Bitcoin people, once they hear about Litecoin or alt currencies, their eyes glaze over. There's people who are into silver, they hear about gold, their eyes glaze over. And then they start to think, if someone disagrees with them, well, they don't know what they're talking about. No, it just means that I don't buy hook, line, and sinker every pumper narrative about every particular asset. That is the asset adoration syndrome. And it could be gold derangement syndrome. It could be Bitcoin derangement syndrome. And it really permeates everything. I mean, all of the channels are, I don't want to start naming them, but they're generally single asset focused. And they want to, and then there's collapse channels that everything is about the dollar collapsing and trying to crush the dollar. And there's some gold and silver in there. They can use Bitcoin, but their main theme is that the dollar's on its way out. End of dollar hegemony. That's basically what they want to hear. So if you have this gold derangement syndrome, only gold, Bitcoin bad. And if you got Bitcoin derangement syndrome, it's only Bitcoin, everything's a shitcoin. I don't want to hear about it. So they don't want to hear about silver or Litecoin or platinum or palladium. Speaking of platinum, we're going to get to platinum. I'm going to have James Henry Anderson from Silver Doctors on tomorrow. I'm not going to do a live stream. Probably won't be on YouTube. I will post it on Smaulgld.com and on BitChute. Don't mark your calendars for that. It'll be out tomorrow, but we're not going to do a live stream tomorrow. Here it is. Single asset derangement syndrome involves asset worship and the inability to see that there may not be absolutes, so there's always room for choices. So Bitcoin could be the best, but it doesn't have to be the only. I mean, the best car isn't the best car. Well, you don't understand. That's not the right analogy. Well, people like to pick their own analogies. Here's an analogy if you know anything about baseball. So Bitcoin, and people who are listening that like gold and silver thinking, I don't want to hear this, but that's all right. But Bitcoin can perform all functions probably better than most altcoins could ever even think about doing. But it doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be used. So for example, it may not end up being a transactional currency. Maybe Lightning doesn't work. Maybe people, even if it does work, don't want to use Lightning. They don't think it's secure. Maybe there's parts of the world where Lightning doesn't work because you can't get enough channels open because they're deemed to be money transmitters and require licenses, and then people are not going to want to open up channels. They're not going to want to get the license. So there's no guarantee that Bitcoin will be a transactional currency. In fact, there are Bitcoin people who believe that Bitcoin is a store of value. It's essentially digital gold. Well, if that's the case, then no one's going to use it. They're going to store it and hoard it. Okay, well, that means that if you believe in cryptocurrencies are being used, then there's got to be room for another cryptocurrency that has a secure network and has somewhat of a store of value that's not going to go to zero as soon as you buy it and before you have a chance to spend it. And that leaves room for another coin. I think it might be Litecoin. It's not investment advice. It's that it's possible. Maybe it isn't. But the idea that Bitcoin could perform all functions better than all coins doesn't mean it will be used for that. And the example I use, if you know anything about baseball, Babe Ruth started his career as a pitcher. And he was amazing. He was a Hall of Fame pitcher. His left hand, he could strike you out. He could throw the ball where he wanted. But he also was a great hitter. And they realized that because he was such a great hitter, if you pitch, you only earn the game. You're only playing once every 3 or 4 days, maybe back then. Today, it's like every 5 days in the starting rotation. So they ended up moving him, taking his wonderful pitching, Hall of Fame style pitching, and putting him in the lineup every day. And that could be what happens to Bitcoin. Bitcoin could become either totally useless, which they don't even consider, the Bitcoin derangement syndrome crowd, or it could be primarily, if their vision comes true, become a store of value. Now, the gold people say, that's impossible, it never happened. Well, just think the way they do. But if it becomes a store of value like gold, and the gold people say, it can, it's not like gold. Just hold that thought and assume that it can become like gold. If you have Bitcoin people and they want to hold it like gold, they're not going to spend it. Do people spend gold? No. What do? You always spend, aggression's rule, you spend the cheaper money. You're not going to spend the Bitcoin, you're not going to spend the gold. In fact, you can't even spend the gold today. There's no place to spend it. It's not accepted as a medium of exchange because it's not money. What do you mean it's not money? JP Morgan says gold is money and everything else is just credit. Well, anyway. So what if that happens? Well, then there's room for another currency. That could be a currency like Litecoin. No, but that's a shit coin. You can't. Okay. You see what happens when you have this asset adoration is it's all gold, it's all Bitcoin, it's all Litecoin, it's all silver. And the silver channels will tell you that silver is rarer than gold. Silver is so useful in our lives, and that gold is just a waste. Well, that's ridiculous. All these points of view are ridiculous. All right, let's move on now. I think that's it on the crypto. Yes, let's talk about silver, gold, and platinum to end the evening, then we'll get to your questions. So the other night we were talking about, remember we do Saturday night silver with Smaulgld, then we did solid gold Sunday with Smaulgld on Sunday. And there's a couple of things just want to review. We talked about Indian silver imports, how they're going higher. Now they've been going higher the last 10 years. And I mentioned that India's main driver for silver is not stacking silver and buying silver bullion and for the collapse is basically jewelry and silverware. Well, check this out. This came out the same day. I didn't see it. It's a nice little chart from Refinitiv Metals. India's retail consumption demand for silver jewelry and investment increased by 20.6%. So you can see where retail consumption in silverware, investment, coins, you can see how coins are at the bottom. They don't buy many coins. The big jump is retail consumption. That's jewelry. You can see the jewelry is the big kahuna. It's more than twice the amount of what they call investment. Coins they don't really buy a lot of them. But look at silverware. Think about that. Indians buy more silverware than they do silver for investment. That's an incredible amount of silverware. I have somewhere a silver spoon. Well, anyway, separate issue. But I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to show you that the big drivers of Indian silver, unlike other countries, because their jewelry and silverware are the top two. Investment is 3 or 4, depending on how industrial it goes. And you can see in the industry, even though they've got a lot of solar panels, still the main reason they're the main drivers of all that silver import into India is for jewelry and silverware. And it's going higher. So you can see industry is pretty much flat. Coin is up a little bit. Investment's up a little bit. But look at the retail consumption on the silver jewelry. 20.6% higher. So very big silver demand from totally different reasons than perhaps the people in the United States buy silver. Let's look at gold. Well, this is a story. 2 stories. We're going to get into the shortage, but this one I find ironic. Now the Hill is pumping the end of dollar hegemony. Now, if you think about it, since the financial crisis, when Obama was in term for 8 years, the story was, and even before then, the gold pumpers always kept saying end of dollar hegemony, dollar collapse, and so on. And actually, there were good reasons for that. When the United States, prior to the financial crisis, and then after the financial crisis up to about 2013, was the world's biggest abuser of fiat currency. Hands down. Was the world's reserve currency, so it was able to rack up the debt, still is, able to rack up the debts, was reliant in part on the petrodollar, and that everyone had to have dollars to buy oil. Saudi Arabia priced its oil in dollars, sold its oil only in dollars, and the United States went about its merry way printing money and printing dollars and selling treasuries. And so that was destined for dollar collapse. And I bought into that because it was true. The United States was in a position where it was out in front of all the other currency and was abusing its position, and became apparent how abusive when it did QE. The other countries hadn't done QE. The other countries didn't have the unfunded liabilities to the extent the U.S. has. But since 2013, that narrative, it's not a narrative, the facts have changed. The United States Fed stopped doing QE, started to raise interest rates, started to knock down its balance sheet. Now, the Congress continued to spend money, but during that time period from 2013 on, Japan did more QE, started buying ETFs. ECB finally did their own QE, which is now bigger than the Fed's ever was. It buys corporate bonds. ECB is now at $5 trillion. They went down to 0. They went to negative. Bank of England, 0% interest rates. And then China outdid the rest of the world, outdid the Fed's QE and the ECB's QE combined. Bridges to nowhere, infrastructure, massive debt Ponzi scheme. Okay. Well, this whole end of dollar hegemony story is gone. It's because now what the United States has done, which is what they'd always done, was they were exporting their inflation through the dollar. But now all the countries not only are doing their own QEs, but they're also borrowing more money in dollars. So China's a mess because of that. They've issued so many dollar-denominated amounts of debt. The rest of the emerging markets have done that, and the dollar's only getting stronger because they've raised interest rates and they've sold off some of their balance sheet, and the Fed isn't buying U.S. bonds. It isn't buying securities like other central banks, equities. It's not buying corporate debt. Now, they're talking about it, but they haven't done it yet. And eventually they will do it once everyone else is doing it, and everyone else is doing it in grand scale. This, again, doesn't end well. It's not that the U.S. is in now a prudent central bank, but it's more prudent than any other central bank, and it's got its debt under more control than the others, even though none of them have it under control. So the point here, though, is the irony is now because the mainstream media wants there to be a recession. Remember, gold pumpers always want there to, they never think that gold can go higher because, like the Indians, they make money, they buy silver, they buy gold. It's not necessarily always a collapse scenario where gold demand goes higher. But in any event, the gold pumpers always wanted to say collapse, collapse, collapse. And they're more than happy for there to be a collapse with Obama because obviously he's a gun grabber, he is a left wing, he's a Democrat, didn't want him to be president, so obviously they wanted the world to collapse around him, and that would be great because then gold would skyrocket, silver would skyrocket, and if China had anything to do with helping that, that was great. Well, today, the mainstream media is totally against Trump, and they're rooting for a recession, and now they're rooting for end of dollar hegemony, because if you can blame Trump for losing the world's reserve currency and for having a recession, well, then you can get rid of him in 2020. So now the gold pumpers are aligned with the mainstream media and trotting this silly end of dollar hegemony story, when indeed the dollar is more hegemonic today than it was 5-10 years ago. It's in a much better position. I mean, eventually the whole thing is going to collapse, but the dollar is not. The currency right now that everybody's got to watch and for it's going to collapse, that's China right now. That's where you got to worry about Europe. You got to worry about Japan. They've reached their Minsky moments. They're just issuing debt upon more debt, and they're not stopping. They're going to cause a financial collapse, and that perhaps will cause gold and silver to skyrocket, not the dollar collapsing. But it is interesting that that's where you see the mainstream media's turn to recession and end of the dollar. No one wants the dollar. Dumping treasuries, they're going to start with that. The only thing the mainstream media doesn't do is then follow on and say buy gold. But I think if they think it will harm Trump, they'll start talking about buying gold. Let's talk about that Chinese shortage, Chinese gold shortage. Also, from Refinitiv Metal, large gold bars. Now, that's a pretty big bar. 500 to 1,000 gram. But these are people with money, and they're like, I need to get out of Chinese yuan, game-changing yuan. And they're out of stock in Chinese cities. Now, I mean, that you got to have a lot of money to buy a 500 gram bar. But the fact that, and there are a lot of people in China that have that kind of money, and they want out. So they're looking to buy those large bars. And I guess they're not looking to leave the country because, I mean, that's like a pound and 1.1 pounds. So that's 16 ounces of gold. You got to have some serious cash, some serious yuan back in your your purchase there to purchase a 500 gram bar. So you're looking at if the price is $1,500, it's $24,000. And if you want the 1,000 gram bars, you got to blow 50 large on a bar, and they're out of stock. Now, there's probably not that many of them made, but still they're out of stock. And it says, and buyers need to wait for 2 weeks to a month for new bars to arrive, but the 10 gram and the 20 gram bars are still available. Now, I suppose if you can afford a 500 gram or 1,000 gram bar, you don't want to pay the premium on the smaller bars. So instead of buying, a bunch of smaller bars, you wait for the fabrication and the 500 and 1,000 gram bars to come. But the fact that they're out of the larger size, we'll keep an eye on to see if they run out of the smaller size, shows that things are not well in China because there's no need. When people buy a lot of silverware, that doesn't mean anything other than the people have a lot of money. When people buy a lot of 500 gram and 1,000 gram bars, 1 and 2 pound bars of gold, what are they going to do with it? Nothing. They want it for wealth preservation. It's the only reason they're buying gold. They're not going to make jewelry out of it. They're not going to. There's nothing to do with a 1,000-gram bar, except hold it against the devaluing yuan. So I wouldn't say it's a positive sign, but it's a good sign for gold that the demand is there in a situation where people think things are not going to go well. Now, finally, platinum. As I mentioned, we're going to pump James Henry Anderson from Silver Doctors. He's got a take on platinum. We did just the other night, if you remember. If you haven't seen it, go back on BitChute and YouTube or Smaulgld and check out what's up with platinum. We did a pretty full overview over platinum, and James is going to join me tomorrow. We're going to do a recording on platinum. We've pulled out some more charts than I already showed you guys last time on platinum. So don't miss that. And since we've discussed platinum just in the last 3 days, platinum is on the rise, up 7% in the last 3 days, according to Kitco. So there you are. Platinum on the move. And tomorrow, James Henry Anderson from Silver Doctors, we're going to go through some more platinum charts. So let's see what you guys are saying. We're still pitching patrons, you know. Patrons, I lost one in July. I didn't even notice it. We're down to 19. That's not very encouraging for continuing this whole shooting match here, but we'll see. Let's see what we got here. I'll put it up for you. What I'll do is I'll make just a pitch for the patrons tonight. Oh, speaking of derangement, before I give you the patron pitch. Now, Bernie Sanders has already said, well, in his own words, healthcare in this country should be free. College is a necessity and a human right, and it must be free too. But now Bernie wants, we're going to eliminate all medical debt. So if you've been to the doctor and you owe money, or you had your leg broken, whatever happened, he wants to get rid of that too. I don't know. He's running on the old class president. If you can give away as much stuff as possible, you're going to get elected. And then he says, who's going to pay for it? He goes, well, you are, but you're going to pay it in taxes, but you won't pay out of pocket when you go to the doctor. Oh, okay. So you're going to pay more, but you're not going to, it's not going to cost you anything when you go to the doctor because you'll have already paid it in taxes. Now, does that sound like a good deal to you? I don't know. The 1% in this country. He doesn't talk about the millionaires and the billionaires anymore because people have figured out that he is one of the millionaires. And, all right. Well, that's enough on Bernie. Let's see what you guys are saying. I'm trying to pull up the fundraising page because that is important for you guys to know. Here we go. Here's the fundraising page. And there it is. How to support Smaulgld. We're looking for patrons tonight. I don't want to confuse anybody with PayPal or Subscribestar or Bitcoin or Litecoin or selling mugs or sending checks and stuff. Patrons. Patreon.com/Smaulgld. Do appreciate that. And I am going to go to a much more heavy patron. You can donate any way you want and you'll be involved in whatever I do. But I'm going to be providing much more content just on a patron only, and I say patron, not Patreon, only basis. So if you are in contact with me, and that'll be more interaction, more emails, perhaps more Skype, more direct materials to your inbox than just the live streams, because I'm probably gonna, this is not the best use of my time, is live streaming every night and worrying when YouTube is going to shut it down. All right, well, let's see what you guys got in the comments. Phil McCain and Philip Quinn are both here. Hello, guys. Internet Cuff Guys here. I haven't seen him before. Que onda? I don't know what that means. Pablo Pena is here. There you go. Litecoin is dead. Okay. Says Guanava HY. Maybe a Bitcoin maximalist, perhaps an extremist. Gold shortage in China. Is this a game changer? There's a dollar shortage in China, Pablo. That is correct. All right. I remember a couple of years ago, you didn't like to talk about crypto. Now your title of the videos has crypto in it. That's right. let me tell you what happened. I've been following crypto since 2013, Gunnavan. And when it came out, and if you follow the channel the whole time, you'll know exactly what happened. I thought it was stupid. I still think it's stupid. I read the white paper, I saw how it worked, and I said, well, that's great, that all works, but why would anybody attach value to it? Well, it's a payment system. I said, but it's just sending nothing. Why is that valuable? Well, you have to solve the math problems, and it secures the network. And I said, but it secures nothing. And my main concern was it all worked, but it looked to me like you'd have to get people interested in expending energy to produce a result so that you can transfer something and convince people that what you're transferring is worth something. So I thought, it's not going to work. I didn't see any value in it. But here's what happened. I also said, well, it's not backed by anything, but here's what happened along the way. People, and remember, this is the whole purpose of this show. I do not determine value for the world. I do believe in markets. I don't believe in asset adoration. I don't believe one to the exclusion of the other. I look at things and I say, my opinion on how this is going to turn out is not going to affect the outcome. So when Bitcoin first came out, my impression and my analysis was it's not going to work. It's stupid. Well, a couple of years later, it was still around and people were actually accepting it as payment, and it actually had a fiat dollar value attached to it. You could use it to buy real world goods, which meant, irrespective of my opinion of it, it had value. But even then, I thought, it's not going to make it. But what turned me into believing that it was here to stay were two things. Back in end of 2016, India, the president of India went on TV and said, okay, so those rupees that you have, they're not worth anything. One of the reasons that I didn't like Bitcoin, I said, okay, so it's a payment system, but why do I need a payment system? I have a credit card. I know why you shouldn't use it. I have a debit card. I have cash. I have checks. They work. Why do I need cryptocurrency? Well, it hadn't occurred to me until India just decided, you don't have that cash. That cash isn't yours. We can take it away from you. We can tell you it's not worth anything. It's fiat by definition. Then I thought, oh, well, they can do that to your bank. They can just close your bank. They could say that the $20 bills that you have in your wallet are no good anymore. And then I said to myself, okay, so fiat currency, they can do that to it. It's got nothing backing it. And there's nothing backing tangibly other than the secured network. But that you don't own that. You can't get that you can't redeem your Bitcoin for amount of energy. What I realized was that the one thing that Bitcoin had going for it was it had a value and no one could take it from you. They could hack your account, they could steal your Bitcoin, but the government couldn't say you don't own that Bitcoin anymore. We hereby deem it's not worth anything. In a sense, it was like gold. The government can tell you your gold's not worth anything and you can be like, okay, so it's not worth anything, but I still have it. It is worth something. So I started to realize that Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, if people want to believe it has value, doesn't matter what I think of it. Just like I can think a movie is terrible and no one would go to see it and everyone goes to see it. Well, if I can make money off of that, I can't deny that there's value in that movie that people will pay to see it, even though I wouldn't give you 2 cents to go see it. That's kind of how I feel about Bitcoin, that I do understand that it has value. And I think it's big value, and the reason I think it has staying power is not only do other people think it has value. Now, institutions are involved, and I've been talking about this for a couple of years, but the main thing is that there is no Bitcoin company that can take it away from you, that can tell you can't transact. So right now, if you want to send me Bitcoin, you can. If you want to send me Litecoin, you can. You don't have to get a wire transfer. You don't have to ask anybody why you're sending it. You don't have to get permission. It can't be reversed. So if you want to send me Bitcoin or Litecoin, go ahead. So that has changed. I don't play this, well, you used to say this. Yeah, I have no trouble with evolving a point of view. I'm not going to slavishly sit here and adore silver and gold or adore Bitcoin or adore gold. I never did. I wasn't adoring gold or silver. The reason I didn't like Bitcoin wasn't because I was adoring gold or silver. It's because I thought it was stupid. And now I see it doesn't matter whether I think it's stupid or not. I do think it is an artificial construct. You do all this stuff and then it works, and it's like me paying somebody to run around the block. And then if I'm stupid enough to pay somebody to run around the block, I could pay 100 people to run around the block. That's just artificially created value. There's no reason to pay people to run around the block. But that's basically what Bitcoin is. You're paying to have a network to secure something that doesn't really exist. But it doesn't matter how I view it, because it has value. And the value is, once it has value, that no one can take that value from you, and you can leave China with it and no one know you had it. Now you say you're leaving with nothing. No, you're really not leaving with nothing. Because if it's $10,400 in fiat value a coin, you are leaving with $10,400 a coin. And so that's why I do cover Bitcoin now, because it's relevant. I think it will remain relevant. So, all right. Team congestion, silver's up last 3 months. Peter Toddlehead, you mock stackers every chance you get. It's not stackers. I mock Bitcoin too. I just did it just now. I mock people who are enamored with an asset. I think that's foolish. People who fall in love with an asset and they get like, see, if the fact that you think I mock stackers, it's like an affront. It's like a religious, it's in a religious affront of you. It's like talking about your mother. It's an insult. I believe in silver. I believe in Bitcoin. I believe in gold. And people get this visceral reaction when you point out, no, it's not going higher. Silver's not going to skyrocket. All these stories are BS. They don't want to hear it. See, this is what keeps the channel from growing, is some people come here and they're like, oh, okay, this is great. He's going to talk about silver. And then I tell you why the gold-silver ratio is high for a reason. You're like, no. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Silver's set to skyrocket. Let me go back over to Mike Baloney's channel. He's going to tell me why silver's going to go higher and why I can buy a house with just 200 silver eagles, maybe a monster box. If that's what you want to hear, go ahead. So I don't believe in these assets. I don't believe in any of them. I'm agnostic as much as I can be. All right. Bitcoin is speculative, silver and gold. I can hold no guarantee on Bitcoin. I agree with that, Jeff. I do agree with that. Yep, team congestion, 285,000 transactions. Right. The fact that they can make those transactions and people see value in them doesn't matter what I think. That's what the no-coiners don't understand. The gold people, the silver people, that their opinion that Bitcoin is a scam, is a waste, doesn't matter. So I learned that. Because when I was totally against Bitcoin in 2012 and 13, it was new and it was my prediction that people would see my way. Well, the point is, I'm not going to still say people are going to see my way when it's obvious they don't see that. They actually provide value. The fact that there's all this, they want to do an ETF and there's backed and all this institutional work and a tremendous amount of intellectual capital and innovation going into it. What am I supposed to say? They're all stupid? They don't know what they're doing? Well, obviously they're going to make money off of it. That's why they're doing it. All right. What else we got here? Oh, Peter Toddlehead going on is, I can take my private key anywhere in the world. No one can take it away from me. That makes me smart, not deranged. Oh, okay. Well, you could take your private keys for another coin as well. Peter is not a fan here. But the thing is, see, Peter Toddlehead is, that's his name. I'm not making that up. He won't be back. And I don't run this show for people who just want to disagree. I love to debate. But the point is, generally, what happens is, if someone disagrees with you, either they'll come on every night and badger you, or they just won't come back. So what's the point? Jeff Coney, yes, US dollar is false, but Bitcoin is valued in US dollars. Which one is truly false? That's a philosophical question. You're right. That's the point. Even gold you can make the argument about. What's the value in it? It's a rock. I mean, why is it valuable? Oh, it's been money for 5,000 years. But why? What is it? What are you going to do with it? So all this value is subjective. And that's why I think these people who say Bitcoin and not Litecoin, gold, not silver, silver, not gold, gold, not Bitcoin, all of them have some value. What people do is they get binary. They fall in love with an asset and everything else has no value. If it's not my beloved silver or my beloved Bitcoin, it has no value whatsoever. Don't waste your time with anything but this. That smacks of religious cultism to me. All right, let's see. What else do we got here? We've got a lot of comments here. People that made millions are the Bitcoin pumpers. Yeah, that's true. Yep. Team congestion. Early adopters, inventors are handsomely rewarded for their foresight and risk-taking. So what? Oh, that's right. God bless them for that. That is true with anything else, like stocks is with Bitcoin. So what? I don't understand what the combative tone is here. I don't disagree with that. It seems you're very concerned what other people pay. Are you talking to me? It seems you are very concerned what other people pay or accept for Bitcoin when it's none of your business, really. No, it is my business, not what an individual pays for it. It's my business as a market analyst to know what people are paying for a particular asset. I mean, that's what I do on this channel. If you think it's none of my business, well, that's what the channel does. Don't tune in anymore. You're jealous of early... Okay, this is a waste of my time. The U.S. dollar is defined as silver in the U.S. Constitution. No, it's not. Read the Constitution. It doesn't define the dollar as silver. Morgan's... Okay, first of all, if you get out the Constitution, all the Constitution says about gold and silver is that no state can print up money unless it uses gold or silver as that tender. Doesn't say anything. The Morgan silver dollar did not come into existence until 1878. The Constitution was written over 1878, 17, over 100 years earlier. So this doesn't make any sense to me. All right. Fiona, team congestion. The different other. All right. U.S. dollar. All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for the patrons. I love the patrons. I love the subscribe stars. I love those who send the Bitcoin and Litecoin. I even like the comments. But, and in fact, I would like to have a longer discussion. But if the idea is that somehow there's got to be some combativeness, someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong. And generally people who take that point of view, they don't have much of the facts anyway. So I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in coming to an understanding as to what's happening in these markets, not to bash one market or another market, or to bash one asset or another asset. Remember, when I criticize an asset, I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying these are the facts why this asset may not do well or what's holding it back. But people don't want to hear about that, about their favorite assets, like insulting their pet, their mother, their religion. And again, that's not how I look at things. All right, so let's see if there's any other questions here. And that's it. 27 watching. Ba ba ba. Yep. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Good night.